In life, when we hear the word humility, we might picture weakness, a lack of self-confidence, or even failure. However, true humility is far from this negative perception. It is, in fact, one of the most powerful forces we can cultivate in our lives. Today, I want to share with you a fascinating story of a man who, through his journey between arrogance and humility, discovered a strength that would change his life forever. This is the story of Mudha, a monk who, through his many mistakes, learned the true meaning of humility. The story of Mudha. Mudha was a monk living in a peaceful monastery on the outskirts of the city of Ujjain, in ancient India. Despite being a disciple of the great teacher Maungalyana, Mudha's reputation among the other monks was not favorable. He was proud of his knowledge, often looking down on others and thinking that he alone was right. He believed that his interpretations of the teachings were superior, and he was quick to disregard the opinions of others. Although he appeared to follow the rules, Mudha twisted them to suit his own desires. The villagers surrounding the monastery had little respect for Mudha, and his sermons were often filled with difficult, complex words that did not resonate with the common people. They felt disconnected from his teachings, and instead of finding solace, they felt alienated. Mudha, however, was not interested in learning from his mistakes. His journey was not one of seeking true enlightenment, but rather a desire for personal glory. He wanted to be as respected as his teacher, Maungalyana, who was known for his great powers and wisdom. But Maungalyana saw through Mudha's pride and arrogance. One day he called him out and said, "Mudha, I see that you are seeking enlightenment for your own gain, not to truly help others. You seek fame, not wisdom. This kind of mindset will never bring you to true realization." Mudha was angered by these words. He could not understand why Maungalyana would doubt him. He was determined to prove that he was more capable than his teacher, but instead of humbling himself and reflecting on Maungalyana's words, he chose to ignore them. The journey of self-discovery. After leaving Maungalyana's presence, Mudha embarked on his own path, seeking to gain more fame and recognition. He traveled to a nearby village where a funeral was taking place. Seeing it as an opportunity to show off his intellect, Mudha stood before the mourners and began lecturing them about impermanence. "Everything is impermanent," he said, using difficult words and concepts that the villagers could not understand. "We must accept the impermanence of life and realize that all phenomena are in constant flux." The villagers, grieving for their lost elder, could not relate to his words. One villager raised his hand and said, "Mudha, we are in mourning. Please speak to our hearts and guide us through this pain." But Mudha, with his pride still intact, retorted, "You are too foolish to understand these profound truths. My teachings are beyond your comprehension." He dismissed the villagers and walked away, annoyed by their lack of understanding. Yet, deep down, Mudha couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Why did they not listen to him? Why were they not moved by his words? He couldn't understand why his knowledge was not bringing the peace he thought it should. A few days later, a villager visited Mudha at the monastery and explained that the people were still suffering, unable to find comfort in his words. The villager pleaded with him, "Please, Mudha, our people are in pain. Can you help us understand how to move past our grief?" Mudha, still proud and unwilling to admit his mistake, replied, "Your inability to comprehend my words is your own problem. There is nothing I can do for you." But something inside him began to shift. He had no one to blame but himself, and yet he couldn't confront his own mistakes. The miracles and the fall. Mudha began to believe that he was special. After several events where things seemed to fall into place for him, he convinced himself that he had powers beyond ordinary humans. One day, a disaster struck and a fire broke out in the village. Mudha, convinced of his own strength, took it upon himself to save the village. He prayed, believing that his prayers could bring rain and extinguish the flames. To his surprise, the rain did come, and the fire was extinguished. The villagers were in awe, praising Mudha as a miracle worker. They believed that his powers had saved them. Mudha, intoxicated by the praise and adoration, began to believe even more strongly in his supposed powers. He became convinced that he was a special being, capable of changing the world with his own will. He preached more about his newfound powers, gathering more followers along the way. But when the time came for him to use his powers again, the rain didn't come. The fire didn't stop. The villagers, once eager to follow him, began to question his abilities. Mudha was humiliated. In his arrogance, he blamed the villagers, telling them they were not faithful enough to him. The villagers, no longer willing to follow him, turned away. It was in this moment of despair that Mudha finally understood. He was not the powerful being he had thought he was. His powers were nothing more than coincidences. And when he sought advice from Maungalyana, the truth became clear. Mudha, said Maungalyana, you have fallen into a trap of your own making. You have allowed pride to cloud your judgment. The true path to enlightenment is humility, not self-aggrandizement. You must let go of your arrogance and learn to truly serve others. Mudha was devastated. He had been so caught up in his own ego that he had forgotten the very essence of true spiritual practice: humility, compassion, and the recognition of one's limitations. The road to redemption. Mudha began his journey of self-reflection. He spent years in meditation, facing the truth about himself. He learned that true power did not come from commanding miracles or gaining followers. It came from acknowledging one's mistakes, accepting one's imperfections, and humbling oneself before others. Through this process, Mudha became a different person. His teachings, once filled with arrogance and pride, were now full of compassion. He no longer sought recognition for his deeds. Instead, he sought to guide others with kindness and humility. One day, an opportunity arose for Mudha to test his growth. A fire broke out in a village he was passing through. Instead of claiming credit for the rain that came to extinguish the flames, Mudha bowed his head and said, "It is not my power that saved you, but the collective strength of your prayers and faith." The villagers, who had seen Mudha's transformation, understood his words. They were touched by his humility and compassion. Mudha, in turn, felt something he had never felt before: peace. The true meaning of humility. True humility is not about belittling yourself or pretending to be weak. It is about accepting your limitations, acknowledging your mistakes, and finding strength in compassion. Humility does not deny your power, but it uses that power wisely for the benefit of others. Mudha's journey teaches us that we must never let pride cloud our path. We must remain open to learning, willing to grow, and most importantly, willing to serve others with love and humility. Conclusion. Mudha's life is a powerful reminder of the strength that comes with humility. It is easy to get caught up in our own desires for recognition and power, but true greatness lies in our ability to serve others with humility. As we walk our own paths in life, let us remember Mudha's story and the lessons it offers. Humility is not weakness, but the ultimate strength. Through it, we find peace, growth, and the ability to transform our lives and the lives of others.